was nothing called Shuaijiao. It wasn't called that back then.
What was it called?
There was Guanjiao was the term for the imperial wrestling in Chinese. There was Bökh, which is Manchu, for wrestling.
I like Bökh.
This is actually a story that is deeply intertwined. There was a group of people called the Gitans. The Gitan people are related to the Mongols. They're not Mongols. And they took over northern China before the Mongols were even a powerful group on the steppe. Their wrestling, from the evidence that we have, archaeological, etc., was that they were doing some kind of jacket wrestling. We don't know much about it. But they had a huge impact on the Mongols. And the Khitan people got pushed out by the Jurchens, which are the ancestors, the Manchu, right? And they all, including the Chinese, get defeated by the Mongols at some point. We see there's still many styles of Mongolian wrestling, but there's definitely Mongolian styles of Mongolian wrestling with jackets. And even in the Qing dynasty, once the Manchus have taken over, you have various kinds of jackets. You have the leather jacket that you're familiar with, the jodok with the studs.
I have one.
Yeah, there's even ones that were made out of cloth.
I'm wearing the pants, by the way.
Oh yeah, I see that. You know, there's even the ones without studs. There's ones that aren't made out of leather but have studs. There's cotton ones, and if you look at the cotton ones, they're basically ancestor to today's Shuaijiao jacket. Basically, the cloth, one of the cloth styles becomes one of the most prevalent styles in the Qing dynasty with the Sanpuying, which is the imperial wrestling group. They're part of the imperial bodyguard. Really important stuff. If you want to keep diplomatic ties with the Mongols, they need to respect you. How do you gain their respect? You cannot wrestle them. Then that's something, right? And so the Manchus, they had to get good at wrestling. So you know, there's that whole arc, and when the Qing dynasty collapses, the empire collapses. Some of these imperial wrestlers, they need jobs. Some of them teach, and that's actually how Shuaijiao came to be. They essentially were using Mongol Bökh, developing it in kind of their own way in Beijing, and then eventually when the empire fell, what they had developed began to disseminate to the masses. Right, and then it got taken up by the military as part of military training, and some of that came over to Taiwan. Some of that remains in China, and so Shuaijiao, up until like 1920, I think, or 1930, there was nothing called Shuaijiao. It wasn't called that back then.
What was it called?
There was Guanjiao was the term for the imperial wrestling in Chinese. There was Bökh, which is Manchu, for wrestling.
I like Bökh.
And that comes from Mongol Bökh, which is durability or wrestling. Right? So
why is it Shuaijiao, and a lot of people call it Chinese wrestling? So is it like a Chinese attempt to hijack the folklore, the tradition, the heritage? What is it?
Yeah, 100%. Many empires, when they're declining, things are not good. And obviously, towards the end of the Qing dynasty, the empire was not doing too good. A lot of people in China at that time took very strong racial notions about that. So they systematically tried to wipe out the Manchu and stamp out traces of their influence in many things. Just like we saw with Japan's modernization process, which they took a lot of cues from. Creating a national narrative is important, and martial arts can be a part of that. Okay, we have a problem here. This wrestling art, this nice, wonderful wrestling art that we want to promote, and there's a few important historical figures that made it happen. This was by the former rulers. How do we take care of that? And they basically lied about it. They tried to link it with Song Dynasty wrestling, which actually has more in common as far as we know with sumo.
If you looked at the Shuaijiao wiki page,
Oh no, I don't want to look at that stuff.
It's like the first thing you see is like it's 1,000,000 years old and its descendants are like judo, and I'm looking at it, I was like, wow.
Oh
what?
yeah.
I still remember I when I first looked at that like years ago, and I'm like, huh. And then there's just so many narratives. Like you have the Indians saying everything started from India, and then it just came out. Then you have the Greeks saying because Alexander went to India, and so it's
pancreation is the mother of everything.
Yeah, like